Right, you guys, this is the time for you all to grab some materials, okay? So you all can get some construction paper. You can just get plain old white paper. You can use a your old one of your old boxes. So, for example, for those of us who like to get those big boxes, the potato chip boxes, you can do that. Get your markers, have your scissors, have your scotch tape or your glue stick, because we are getting ready to have fun with learning about a character sketch, okay? Using the book, The Skin I'm In, all right? So you all stay tuned for this different kind of episode of Real Reading Talk. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Sasha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have high levels of illiteracy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. So I am super duper excited about this episode because for those of you who have been listening and been following the podcast, you know, I said this is going to be a 3-part episode where we are doing something totally different. This is something we've never done before on Real Reading Talk. So first, I want to welcome my phenomenal guest. Once again, for the umpteenth time, y'all, Miss Ebony Donley, educator, owner of Literacy Innovations, literacy advocate. Welcome, welcome again, Miss Donley.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm so excited this time.
Hey, oh my God, y'all. We like some geeks, okay? When it comes about that reading, the education, and all that for our community, we just be like getting pumped. Y'all should hear our conversations, but y'all do get to hear them because y'all listen on Real Reading Talk, okay? So this is what we got planned today, right? So Ebony, she is going to lead the way in us learning about a character sketch. All right. So this is the first thing that we're going to delve into because just like I said in the introductory episode, for those of you who may have forgotten or didn't hear, we want to show creative ways, hands-on ways in which our students, our children, they can do a deep dive into the text. All right. So that means whatever book that they're reading, this is a way to help them be able to understand what it is that they're reading. All right. So it's merely more than just them reading the words on the page. They need to be able to understand, comprehend what's going on. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do today is a project on character sketch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the definition of the character sketch because I said I don't want to fumble over nothing. And I'll show you guys the book shortly of the book that we're going to be using. All right. So here we go. Character sketch. It is a short piece of writing describing a person, is especially in terms of personality traits and behavior patterns. Okay. So that's what we're going to be doing. All right. And the book that we're using, The Skin I'm In by Sharon G. Flake. And this book is a popular book amongst middle school as well as high school students. This book is just such a phenomenal read. The main character, Malika, she is dealing with issues in terms of not being happy with who she is, in particular with her skin color. So you have that aspect going on in the book, the colorism, her being teased because of her skin color. So there's a lot of different things going on in this book, and she's a phenomenal writer as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Ebony because she is going to give us a little bit more explanation as to why she chose for us to focus on a character sketch.
Well, one of the standards that we have to do that our students are responsible for, we have to determine a character's motivations. And then we have to talk about how the things that they do, how they impact what's going to later happen in the story. So in order to do that, we need to know about these characters, not just what they look like, but how they think, their personality traits, like what makes them them. this book was a really good book. And so it's like, as you get to know these characters, you just expect certain things. So like when you're talking about Malika, you expect certain things. And I was kind of disappointed in like some of the things that she did. I'm like, wow, like I thought you would have come out of that. But Shar had a chokehold on her, as well as those twins.
Oh,
It was like they can kind of punk Malika into doing anything. And then you think about John.
yes.
And then I was thinking about like how Malika was with Miss Saunders. Like she always had like a little something smart to say about Miss Saunders, but not about these students.
Oh.
And so, we find this a lot. So I was really into the whole book. Like the book is like a quick read for me because I really liked it. So by that being one of the things that the kids have to be able to do, talk about the characters, I was like, well, let me model this. Because a lot of times, we'll model something and it's very, very important. So I chose Malika pretty much because it was a toss up between Miss Saunders and Malika. But I kind of want to do Charlize a little bit too. But I just stopped. I settled in. I did Malika. And so I was thinking about what are some things they said about her physically or some things she said about herself. So when she talks about herself in the very beginning of the book, like chapters 1 and 2, she talks about how she's tall. She talks about how she's thin. But when she was going on to say, she's like, they constantly talk about, that I'm so dark, but nobody says that I'm a math whiz. Nobody says I have a great memory. I can remember anything. Like, and she's saying all of that, all of those type of things. And so I'm like, okay, because you get a sense of how she feels about herself as well as how the other characters in the story feel about her.
Yes.
And so then as the whole story's going on, I'm like, okay, talking about how I feel about her in terms of some of the things that she's done, maybe why she did it. Cause I'm like, why would she do that? I noticed that she did a lot of stuff because she wanted to fit in. And we get that. And peer pressure is a real thing, especially in those middle grades. It seems like it's even worse now with some of the younger kids, but it's a real thing. So I wanted to delve into Malika. How would I describe her if I had to describe her without somebody telling me what to pick? So I'm going to say some of the things I said about her, and then I'm going to show y'all my wonderful artwork. So I said she was a follower because she did some things that she knew were wrong just to like keep the peace with her friends. Well, they're really more like frenemies. They're not really friends, but she did a whole lot of that. But then I was saying that she's very resilient because she comes up out of all of that, especially when she was talking about like when her father passed away and the things she had to do for her mother, and how she had to, keep herself out of the system while making sure her mother was okay, keep the money coming. She was very empathetic because even though Charlize was so mean to her, she still felt bad for her when she went over there and Charlize was like she had been up all night, and her sister was partying. She left, which was a good idea. However, she still was like, oh, poor Charlize. Like I can understand how I'm feeling if I, wasn't able to get any sleep. I'm very sensitive. She's a very sensitive soul. Like I remember when she went to go get her haircut, she was feeling fly. Them people had pumped her all up. She left out of there. She was like, okay, I got it going on. But as soon as she went to school and the other kid said something about her, she started crying. Then remember, she put on a baseball cap, made up a reason why she couldn't take it off, like all of this stuff. So I said she was very sensitive, but very creative. Very creative. Like that journal that that diary about Alchema and all of that kind of stuff, like very creative and also very intelligent because it speaks to how her test scores were good enough to go to the private school, but remember she didn't want to leave her friends and all of that kind of stuff. And keep in mind that her one friend did go to the private school. And so that's when she was talking about how she was good. She was very intuitive in the fact that like John was saying some things about himself and she was like, but I don't feel like I don't feel like he about that life anyway. Like he said that, but I don't get that from him. So very like intuitive in that way. And that's pretty much all I said. Yeah, that's all I said. Now I gotta show you.
Okay.
Keep in mind everything that I used for this was very, very simple.
Yes.
I took a potato chip box, I cut it up, and because I wanted it to be able to stand up. So I cut the potato chip box up. So when you look at this, just keep in mind, it's just a good old potato chip box when you can buy like the 50 bags of chips that I used family game night. And so
Yeah.
I ran across some stars that I had from Dollar Tree from who knows when.
Right.
I end up using those, and I just put those on with some scotch tape, nothing amazing, like nothing, everything. And then I just had some markers around here. And with that, I created my masterpiece,
Yes. Yes.
which is this. So now Malika was the character I worked on. What character did you work on?
Okay. So before what I want to do, before I go into my character, I
Okay.
want you to let the audience know how was it? What was your first steps? Did you like write down the different characteristics? Like, was it a brainstorming thing? Were you like putting these things down first before, like on paper, like in a list? Like, what was your method that you used so that people can understand?
Well, when I read a book, I get to interacting with these characters. So as I'm listening, because as I stated earlier, couldn't find my copy. So I had to listen to the audiobook for this. But I
Mhm.
read the book before. But I'm so upset over the type of thing. So I'm like, oh my God, here she go. Oh, she's such a follower. I'm saying that. And I'm like, as they're talking about her test scores, I'm like, but she's smart though. And
Mhm.
then so as I'm going through there, I'm just channeling my own interactions, how I interacted with it. And so then I'm like, okay, how would I describe her? Because
Mhm.
I waited to the end, but I did have like a running record of the things. I'm like, well, she did this. So I would say that's, she's resilient. She
Okay.
helped John when he was getting his butt kicked. So
Right.
she's a fighter. And plus, she fought for herself when those boys were trying to do whatever.
Yeah.
She fought for herself. And so things like that. And I was just like in the whole thing. And I was just kind of taking notes. And I'm like,
Okay.
because if you look at what I did, I'll
Yeah.
rip one of them. I'm going to rip one of them off because
Okay.
I said that she's empathetic, but that my people you can't see it from here. But
Right.
then I wrote
Thank you.
why
That's
I
what I
said
was
she
to
was
explain that.
empathetic. So it says, she felt bad that Shar had to stay up all night while her sister was partying. And so I did that for each one. So everyone I said, so when, on the one that says intelligent, it
Mhm.
says her test scores were high enough to get into the private school. And so I did that for each one. And I didn't speak about the yellow ones, but the
Yes.
yellow ones were what they actually said about Malika directly in the book, or what she said about herself. So in the book, she was saying that they're always talking about how black she is, but they don't talk about the fact that she's a math whiz. They don't talk about the fact that she has a really good memory. And then she was talking about how she's tall, she's thin, and how she's a bad dresser. And we
Okay.
also know that she's 13. And we got that. They said that explicitly. Either somebody said that about her or she described herself in that way. So that's how I came up with everything. And I was just thinking, like, okay, if I say that she's creative, why?
Mhm.
Number one, that diary, and she won the contest. We can't forget that. Out of all the people who entered that contest, she won the contest for her creativity and her awesome writing. So I just took my time with it. I didn't really too much have to do a rough draft, but I just did jot a few things down because
Okay.
I was like, when I do this, because I'm actually going to take this activity back to my classroom, I'm not going to use the same book, but this is going to be one of the models I'll use when I give them an activity similar to this.
Yes, yes. And then one thing too that I'm glad that you explained, just like how you got the yellow stars, that was specifically dedicated to, you said what they explicitly said
Yes.
in the book. And can you tell why that's important? Because a lot of times, and that's the thing with our kids, sometimes like when they're asked to like give descriptions and different things like that, you're breaking down like in a great way how you have what the book has said, and then the other stars represents what you gather from her based off of things that she's done. Can you explain why this is so important, Ebony?
Yes, because our students have to be able to do this, because I think they sometimes get tripped up because they'll say they didn't say that in the book. And it's like, no, you have to use you got to draw your own conclusions. Like when we talk about making inferences and drawing conclusions, these are skills that students have to be able to do. And you have to be able to do these type of things in order to be effective at
Hmm.
it. And so it's just like those things like that, because then from there they'll say, what's the theme? what would you, we know it can be implied or it can be, stated. But so then they have to think about, okay, based on all of this, what could be a theme of this book? It can be follow your heart, follow your own dreams, don't let other people lead you, whatever, and things like that. So they have to be able to do all of this, what I've done, what we're doing with the character sketch, and able to take it further.
Yeah.
And
Loving.
we always want them to take it further, because guess what? When it comes to the writing portion, they have to be able to do this. If they want her, say for instance, they want two characters to be described, like describe Malika and Miss Saunders and use evidence.
There you go.
So then that means you can't just be like, well, Miss Saunders got this thing on her face. You have to speak to who she is as a person, as a character. Then you have to speak to Malika, who she is as a character, and then we have to compare them. So that's why all of these things are important. So you have to listen to what is said, yes, and then, but you have to draw your own conclusions. And what happens is sometimes our students just aren't able. They haven't had a lot of experience with it, or they just like, just tell me. But it's like what you get from a character, I may get something different, because think about my life experiences might kind of come into this too. Because as I'm reading this, I'm like, look at her. Like, she really did that.
Yeah.
And then, but you might have some people like, that ain't no big deal. Like, I mean, my cousin done worse than this. So it's the things like that we have to think about, because you also bring your life experiences into this kind of stuff also. So that's why I did it like that. And I tried to do it in such a way so I can be like, okay, yes, I do have what the text says, but then I have my own interpretation, because that's when you're getting into that higher level, when you're using your own interpretations and what you're drawing from that. And sometimes the feelings that it evoked from you, like I was like thinking I didn't want to read the follow-up book because it has something to do with human trafficking. I'm like, whoa, I don't really know if I want that type of, like, I don't know if I want to do that. And so you got to kind of know yourself and all of that. So yes.
That's an excellent point. Oh, I love it. And this again, just as a reminder, you guys, I mean, as you all see the dialogue between Ebony and I in terms of just explaining why these things are very important, and also how they can be fun. We actually show our students, we show our kids how we are doing the process, because a lot of times we assume they understand certain things, but if we are not connected and have those relationships and have those conversations with them, a lot of times, we just go and say, okay, do this. And then we're like, okay, how come they didn't get this? Well, we have to literally go step by step and explain stuff. And so that's why I asked Ebony, I said, I want you to show the project. And then actually what I decided to do while we're right here is, now I started to go into the character that I chose. So I chose Miss Saunders. Okay. And you guys can see, right? See, you can see that?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. And so I was following. So what Ebony did, I asked her to, do the project, and then I'm following her lead. Okay. But I did put my own flavor to it, right? So instead of me using stars, okay, I decided, so for the first, I'm going to describe what the book explicitly said about Miss Saunders. Okay, so I chose these yellow crescents. All right. And so I'm going to put on here, and just to be clear, I know some of you are probably like, okay, I know I can cut this out, but I'm just trying to just speak to the person who like, look, man, just show me step by step. Okay. So I got some straight up, I just had some, regular printed paper. It's not construction paper, it's just colored copy paper. That's what I have. All right. Somebody had donated this to us. And so I got the yellow colored copy paper. And then what I did was I just printed out, because my drawing just absolutely sucked. Some of you out there, y'all sweet, y'all can draw a sweet crescent moon with no problems. Me, I had to print a copy, and then I cut out the crescent, put it against the paper, and then I just cut around it. And so there you have it. So that's why I got my crescent. And so then what I plan on doing here is I was going to write, so for Miss Saunders, it said that she was tall as well, and she was overweight. So that we know as well. And she obviously had I don't know if I was trying to figure out how to word it. Should I say it was more of a deformity on her face? That was the word, or that's the
You
word
can say that.
yeah.
You
So
can
that was
say that.
yeah. So she had like a deformity on her face. All right. So I'm putting that as well. So those were the descriptions that was explicitly in the book. And also I was going to put on the other one how she was a bad dresser. Okay. That's something they talked about. They said, sister girl, she had the fly clothes. Okay. So she could like dress really well. And she had, and of course, this includes not just the clothes, but her jewelry. They talked about her jewelry, her shoes. She was sharp. Okay. So that's what I'm putting. How do you spell Jewel? I always mess up jewelry. Jewelrey. I think so.
Jewelry.
ELRY. Thank you. And then the shoes. Okay. So that's what I'm doing. I put that right here. And so then what I'm going to do, I got I have a glue stick. All right. And just like Ebony said, Ebony had Scotch tape. Or if you got masking tape, whatever. The whole point is that get something to stick it on there. It's either going to be glue or tape. Those are going to be your options. Okay. So then I'm doing that. And I'm putting that at the bottom. Bam. And then bam, right on the other side. And so I'm about to show you guys real quick what mine is about to look like. Uh-oh. I wanted to go the opposite way, but that's all right. So. And I love the fact how Ebony, again, how she chose those two different colors to represent what it explicitly said about Malika in the book. And so I said, that's a great idea, right? Because then we're teaching, again, everything we're doing with this project is a teachable moment. So again, we're stressing how, okay, this is what they said. And the other things are based off their characteristics. So these are things that that are implicit, right? These are things that we are like inferring that this is how they are. Okay. So that's the other part. So what I did, the same thing that I did with the crescents, I got a printed copy of a diamond shape, and then I put it against the paper once again, cut it out. And so now this is going to represent more of her character traits. All right. So first we talked about more of Miss Saunders, her physical characteristics. So now I'm focusing on more of her character traits. So, so what I did with that, okay, I know you all can't obviously see the notes, but for me, I have to write stuff down before I start to put it like on the project form. So I wrote down some things. So I'm just going to do a few. I won't do as many as Ebony did. But again, with these kinds of projects, guess what? You can do, I think you had a total of 8, if I'm not mistaken, correct? I think you had about 8, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So if you want to if you like, you know what, you only came up with 5 at the time or whatever, that's fine. Or you may come up with 10 or 11, you can add to it, which is great. So what I chose, one of them was, I put that she was a visionary. And I gave that example from page 76, where because the teachers were complaining about Miss Saunders. And they were talking about, she's always trying to question stuff. She always trying to, show that, we could be doing something different. We could be doing something better, right? And so I was like, you know what? I said, she's a visionary. All right. So what I'm going to do, I put that down, visionary. So that's somebody, again, you think about a visionary, that's somebody who they're not just looking at what's right there. They're looking at the possibilities. Okay, so that's one of the character traits that I got from Miss Saunders. She definitely had more of that kind of positive outlook on things. All right, she was looking at, okay, you know what? I'm here to make a change for these students. Okay, so that's why I put visionary. All right. Also, I put on here that she was fearless. Okay, so that's another one. Why did I put fearless? Well, off the rip, I put in there when she immediately checks Shar, when Shar calls herself trying to say something about her face, she was like, People have said stuff about my face in 4 different languages. Okay, like stop. You got to come again. She wasn't that new teacher on the scene, like, oh, timid acting or like, oh my God, I need to try to make sure that we connect and, and you like me. No, she let Shar know. She was, hey, listen, I already know who I am. Okay. So you're not going to think you're going to scare me with your little cracks or whatever the case may be. So that's why I put fearless. All right. And then another one I put was stylish. Okay, so that's an obvious one, right? So I put stylish again in talking about how she dresses, how she cares about, how she looks, you know what I'm saying? She like, look, I want to look nice, I want to smell good, all of that type of stuff. And then, so I'm gonna put that down, then I'll do one more. I'll say one more, which is authentic. Okay. So she had that. So she came and she's like, listen, I know I have this on my face. So she made it clear, like, I'm not shying away from something that it's an obvious thing, but I've learned to live with this and I'm going to be who I am. So you're going to accept me for who I am. Okay. So that's, to me, that was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? And she was obviously giving an example. And as we see throughout the book, that was her lesson for the main character, Malika, letting her know, hey, listen, she could tell, like, obviously she has an issue with her skin color. And she letting it be clear. No, you love who you are, baby. I love who I am. All of me, this scar, the overweightness, all of it. This is me. And so having that authenticity right there, being that example, and I could go on. I mean, I wrote down a couple things. I wrote down that she was a reader and a researcher. Okay. She loved reading. She also, and I put researcher too, because it talked about how she was looking at the kids' backgrounds. Remember, you know what I'm saying? She was talking about their, well, yeah, I know about y'all background, right? You know what I'm saying? Malika all like, wait a minute, how y'all know, you know about us, but we don't know. But she like, listen, you know what I'm saying? I have to research you're my clients. You know what I'm saying? I have to know who you are, so then I can be able to deal with you accordingly. So yeah, so that's mine. And so what I'll do is, let's see, just real quick, I'm just gonna just paste it on here on the board. So these are just a few, and I could have gone on and on, but I just wanted to just show you guys how awesome and how creative that we can be when it comes to reading. Okay, so I just put, I don't know where my other one is, so I'm just going to show you guys. So this is right here, and again, the materials that was used, I actually had a trifold, and I was afraid I couldn't show the whole trifold in the video, so I tore off the flaps on the side. So that's what I did.
Okay. Well, that was smart. That was a smart idea.
Yeah, so I did that. And then, of course, I already showed y'all again in terms of how I had a template of the diamond and the crescent, cut those out. And then again, for me, I had to write down ahead of time. I took the notes on what I wanted to say about Miss Saunders. All right. And then, of course, in the middle, I just used like some little poster board or whatever, put her name to show that she is the center focus of, of what this project is about. The character sketch is about her. And of course, the name of the book and everything like that. And there you have it. Yes. So I hope that you all enjoyed that. Again, like I said, I wanted to do something different. I felt like this was something that was needed, because a lot of times we assume that our kids understand, when we're trying to get them to do things, something as simple as this, though, describing a character. Sometimes they don't have the words. They don't know, they're like, okay, what do you mean? I mean, she was a girl. I mean, she go to school, and it's almost like, Ebony, and you please tell me, what I'm saying, your thoughts on this. I just feel like it's a combination of things. You have, number one, I think a lot of it is they don't have the language, which I know you're going to do one on vocabulary, which is great. All right. And it's like they have they have a hard time, or they feel like maybe they're afraid to like take that deep dive. I don't. You give me some feedback on what's your take on why it's hard a lot of times for our students to do things like this.
Well, sometimes I think because we don't use the terminology.
Okay.
You know, like we'll have them do something. We may say, like, hey, we're going to describe some characters today instead of calling it a character sketch. So even though
Hmm.
we have described these characters, they may not know that it's a character sketch. So if a question says something like, um, if you were to do a character sketch on Malika, what characteristics would you give her? And they're like, character sketch, I've never done this. Like, what is this?
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we just have to use the terminology that they're going to encounter. I think a lot of times we put stuff in layman's terms, and it's not a bad thing.
Right.
However, you know, sometimes we just have to call it what it is.
Yeah. Yes. And then it's also what you're describing though too is again like we're going into the vocabulary piece. We're
Yes.
expanding their vocabulary so they can know that okay, when you're describing something, you can actually use a plethora of words. You don't have to use the same type of words over and over again. There are words you could say more than just intelligent. They're they were, had a genius mindset, or, just it's hard for me to think of a word all brilliant. You know what I mean? We're now what we're doing is we're giving them the language so they can be able to have an expansive, a very large, a very huge vocabulary.
Yes. And I think it's important to note things like that. We have to I notice like we're always trying to break something down. Like we're always trying to break something down, like in case they don't get it here.
Yeah.
But when some of the things that they're required to do, they don't break it down.
Mm.
You know, if it wants a character sketch, then that's what it wants. And we can't be like, hey, remember when we taught you how to describe the characters? We can't say that. So it's like they
Mhm.
have to get used to using
Mhm.
drawing conclusions,
Right.
okay, annotations. They have to get used to using the terminology so that when they encounter it, they know what it is.
Yeah.
And
That's
so we just have to do something. And I want to speak to the fact something about me that anybody who knows me knows I have horrible allergies. I'm having an allergic reaction today to something. That's why I keep touching my face. Like I'm because of where I know we're not going to be able to edit everything out. But everybody who knows me knows on any given day, I'm going to wake up and it could be something that I've encountered, something I've smelled, something I've eaten, just something I've been around, just outside in general. And
yeah.
today was that day, but I was really wanting to come on here and talk about the skin I'm in.
Yes.
So
Yes. Well,
even
look,
though, because I noticed I kept doing this and I cannot help it, and I didn't want to take anything for it because I wanted to be live in my regular self when I got on here. I didn't want to be
oh,
sluggish or lethargic, like, oh my God, why did I didn't want to be looking like that or saying that. So I just wanted you to know that because that's why I kept touching my face. But one other thing I want to note to the parents who are looking at this, don't always think it's something that they have to go out and buy. You
thank
know,
you.
don't think it's another project, it's another something that I have to use. Like I use the potato chip box, like I said. And then this stuff was just stuff around the house. But I've done projects where I have used the circulars that come into my house.
There we
You
go.
know, I have used like a Capri Sun box or something. So
Mhm.
don't always think it's like another thing you have to go buy because it's not about the materials that you use. Part of creativity is how do you use them? How did you use these materials that are already here? So I don't want parents to look at us and be like, oh, but they did this and you
Right.
know, but they had that. No, because the most important thing that was on both of our boards was the things that came from our mind. What
Yes.
we thought about, what we gathered from the story. Nobody's gonna be like, oh, so I mean, she wouldn't even go buy a poster board. She used this box,
Gotcha.
you know. And
Yep.
so we can be resourceful with this while doing these type of activities. You know, like if it's at school, like but I'm displaying this in my classroom. I'm gonna just tell the truth. This right here is going to be being shown somewhere. But I want parents to get out of that mindset of thinking I always have to go buy something. Use something that we are repurpose some stuff. You know,
Yes.
we don't, it's not always about spending money. There's most of the time a crayon, a marker, a color pencil
Yes.
almost in anybody's house if they have children.
Come on.
you know, and things like that. And so I just want them, because like those stars, like I said, they came from the dollar store where I have where it says the skin I'm in, that's a piece of computer paper. I folded it in half. I
Mhm.
couldn't find a glue stick, which is why I used the Scotch tape. You understand? Because I was like, too, I didn't want to think too much about it. And I wanted to put myself in the mindset of some of the families. Like we
Right,
not all about to go out to Walmart and buy all of this, all this craft stuff. And we
right,
don't have to.
right.
And I think that's what we need to, because our kids get so caught up in what it looks like
Mhm.
instead of the meaning behind it. Like
Yes,
it'll look beautiful and everything on it will be wrong. I hate to say it like that, but sometimes it's just not the right kind of stuff. Now it looks magnificent.
right, right,
However, you didn't put in the mental work.
right, right.
So I did want to note that, because I see a lot of that as a teacher, where my students will have pages of stuff written. I'm like, where you get this from? Like,
Mhm.
did we read the same book? Oh, you did the remix.
Right.
Because that's I'm like, oh, you did the remix. So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to just speak to, because I think sometimes it can be intimidating because they think they have to have the right this and the right that. Those markers that I use were some I got on Target on sale for 50 cents.
Yeah, huh?
Nobody was looking at like, oh my God, she had the cheap markers.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I want to add to what you just said too. You have a kid out there who they absolutely love art. They're artists. But guess what? What we're showing you guys right here, both can happen at the same time.
Hmm.
They can have the content, they can understand what's going on, what is asked, and be able to produce that, as well as put in their creativity to it. So they wanted to make it into some 3D stars and moon. They can do that. But just like Ebony said, they have to make sure, though, that they are doing what is being asked. So if it's a character sketch, they have to make sure they are able to give descriptions and be able to explain why they gave that description, just like how you saw Ebony demonstrated, as well as myself. So there we go, y'all. We did it again. We did it again. Yes, indeed. So this is what we got for y'all today. And once again, I want to thank you, Ebony, and I'm going to see you again soon. Okay,
Yes.
because we have 2 more episodes, you guys. 2 more, okay, God willing, inshallah. We are going to bring to you all some more ways that we can help our children be able to take that deep dive into reading. All right. Like I said, it ain't about that surface. That's just they're reading the words, just word calling. No, we need to get into that text. We need to know these characters and all of that stuff. So y'all make sure y'all be ready for the next episode, because it's going to be a banger just like this one. Okay. So thank you all again for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Sasha. And remember, with Real Reading Talk, we discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. All right. So don't forget to please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. Okay. Make sure you all do that. All right. You all take care. And please remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Reading is freedom. Thanks, Eb.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Peace. Again, you guys, I am just super excited. I hope you all enjoyed that episode. Ebony and I, we worked really hard because our intention, again, is to make sure that our children are doing more than just reading words on the page. We want them to be able to expand their language. We want them to be able to describe the characters. All right. We want them to be able to make connections to the book. So using their own experiences. So all of these different things we want to see our young people do, and they can. And that's why I wanted us to have this episode, because we literally were intentional about showing them how they can. All right. Again, make sure that you all like, subscribe, put your comments, share these videos. Okay, it's going to be on my YouTube channel, which is Reading is Freedom. If you're looking for a reading tutor, go to abclearntutoring.com. Also, go to abcread.org. That's the nonprofit organization that I started, and you guys can see what we've been doing there. And you all make sure all the different podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, make sure that you are listening on there as well. All right. And just so you all know, the book that I started reading, I already finished this book, y'all. I had already started it throughout the year, and I finished it with probably a couple of hours. This is the book that we're going to be using, The Skin I'm In. And then the book Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. Okay, so that's the book that I'm reading as well. Okay, and I'm going to leave you guys with a quote, which is, you know what, I'm going to actually get the full quote from, I thought I could find that quote, my phone. Nope. So I'm not going to worry about it. So you all make sure that you all take care, and remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Don't forget to grab your merch. Peace.